The Shroud of Turin is a centuries-old linen cloth that bears the image of a crucified man, a man that millions believe to be Jesus of Nazareth. Modern science has completed hundreds of thousands of hours of detailed study and intense research on the shroud. It is, in fact, the single most studied artifact in human history, and we know more about it today than we ever have before. And yet the controversy still rages. Is it the cloth that wrapped his crucified body, or is it simply a forgery by some clever artist? Join us as we uncover the myth and reality behind the Shroud of Turin and see if it's history. The Shroud of Turin, a shocking testament to the crucifixion of Jesus. The latest findings being published in a new book focuses on the Shroud of Turin. This linen cloth is believed to bear Jesus' imprint as he was being prepared for burial. Now, there's new research that may challenge the claims of those who say it's an elaborate fake. The Shroud of Turin is indeed a fascinating artifact that has sparked considerable debate and interest over the centuries. While many believe it to be the authentic burial cloth of Jesus, others approach it with skepticism, citing various scientific analyses and theories. And historical considerations. The discovery of the faint image of the shroud, particularly its clarity and photographic negatives, has intrigued scientists and believers alike. The three-dimensional details apparent in the image have also puzzled researchers, as they seem to surpass the capabilities of medieval artists. Additionally, the documented history of the shroud adds to its mystique and allure. The revelation of the rare stitch on its back linked it to the Mata fortress in Israel and provides an intriguing archaeological connection. This connection adds another layer to the debate surrounding the shroud's authenticity, aligning it with historical events and locations relevant to Jesus' time. The depiction of wounds consistent with Roman scourging and crucifixion on the shroud further fuels the belief that it could indeed be the burial cloth of Jesus. The presence of blood and clear fluid on the cloth, particularly around the chest wound, adds to the complexity of its narrative. In 1898, Secondo Pia produced the first photographs of the shroud, which showed that the human image on it can be seen more clearly in a black and white photographic negative than in its natural sepia color. This discovery is still relevant today, as it helps in better understanding it and its features. The shroud has a documented history dating back to 1354, when the Shroud of Turin was exhibited in a church in north-central France. It revealed a negative image possessing 3D details that go beyond the capabilities of paintings. In a pivotal moment of revelation in 2022, conservation efforts in Italy unveiled a hidden secret. The removal of the 16th century backing cloth exposed a rare type of stitch on the back of the shroud, a stitch known only from one other place, the Masada fortress in Israel. This archaeological connection adds layers of authenticity to the shroud's story, as Masada was a witness to the Jewish revolt, aligning with the historical timeline of Jesus. The Holy Shroud's narrative includes the presence of multiple wounds consistent with Roman scourge marks on the cloth, matching lead balls from a whip. There's a wound on the chest with both blood and clear fluid, suggesting the heart stopped beating. The shroud's journey is not just about what's on it, but where it's been. As I dive deep into the story depicted on the Shroud of Turin, journey with me as I uncover the traumatizing moments leading to Jesus' crucifixion. The true story of what went down at the crucifixion. Before the final act of sacrifice, Jesus endured a brutal and dehumanizing series of torments, each excruciating detail etched into the fabric of the shroud, stripped and subjected to merciless flogging. The flails used were tipped with both blunt and sharp objects, tearing into his flesh and reducing it to shreds. The agonizing process left the body battered and covered in wounds. To intensify his sufferings, soldiers fashioned a crown of thorns, not delicately woven but hastily twisted for branches. After this merciless display of brutality, Jesus, now bearing the weight of his cross, was dressed in his blood-stained garments and forced to carry the 150-pound burden. Despite the pain and loss of blood, he struggled forward, each step a grueling journey. The wooden cross dug into his shoulder, exacerbating the wounds from the flogging and inflicting additional torment as it banged against the thorny crown, sending sharp stabs of pain into his head. Tripping and falling under the immense weight of the cross, Jesus endured yet another wave of suffering. The impact crushed his chest against the ground, twisting his arm and wrenching it severely out of its socket. The cross, now atop him, pressed into the back of his neck and shoulders, partially paralyzing him. His head sagged to the right, rendering his right side useless. In this state of agony, heartless soldiers callously pulled him up by his dislocated arm, forcing him to continue the journey with the cross now on his left shoulder. Bent over in pain and weakness, his right arm hung helplessly by his side. The staggering steps forward were a testament to his resilience amidst unimaginable suffering. The narrative unfolds with stark realism. Each mark, each wound, tells a story of unparalleled sacrifice and suffering. The shroud, like a silent witness to these agonized moments, invites us to contemplate the depth of Jesus' sacrifice and the profound love of God that compelled him to endure such brutality for the sake of humanity. In the end, the shroud not only preserves the physical remnants of this crucible of pain, but also serves as a powerful testament to the resilience of faith and the enduring message of hope that emerged from the darkest hours of human history. As we approach the culmination of Jesus' journey, the Shroud of Turin vividly captures the heart-wrenching scene on Golgotha. His clothes, now soaked with blood, were mercilessly ripped from his body, opening wounds that had started to adhere to the fabric. Helplessly thrown onto the cross, the soldiers proceeded to nail his already distorted and dislocated right arm, causing excruciating pain as nerves and ligaments were torn. When Jesus' body reached the tomb, it was placed on a bed of perfumed spices. The headcloth was removed and the shroud was folded over him. Loosely wrapped with a thin strip of linen, this gentle yet hurried burial was necessitated by the impending Sabbath. His lifeless form, wrapped in pure linen, was left in the tomb, the entrance sealed with a rolled stone. The shroud is a rectangular piece of cloth that measures approximately 4.4 x 1.1 meters and is made of flax fibrils woven in a thread, 3-to-1 herringbone twill pattern. The most distinctive feature of the cloth is the faint brownish image of a man, seen from both the front and back. On the cloth there is an image of a man with a beard, mustache, and shoulder-length hair parted in the middle. He appears muscular and tall, with various experts measuring him as between 1.70 to 1.88 meters. While all these are buried in history, let me take you through the biblical evidences that support the shroud. Beyond hearsays, the Bible reveals it all. In 1532, a fire broke out in the chapel located in Chambéry, France, causing damage to the shroud. The linen suffered burn holes and scorched patches on both sides due to contact with molten silver, which burned through it in some areas. To repair the damage, nuns sewed 14 large triangular patches and 8 smaller ones onto the cloth. The shroud has undergone several restorations to preserve it and prevent further damage and contamination. It is stored in an airtight case made of laminated, bulletproof glass. The case is temperature and humidity controlled to prevent chemical changes. The shroud itself is placed on an aluminum support that slides on runners and is stored flat within the case. According to the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Joseph of Arimathea wrapped Jesus' body in linen cloth and laid it in a newly built tomb. However, the Gospel of John suggests that strips of linen were used for the same purpose. Joseph of Arimathea was a biblical figure who played an important role in the burial of Jesus Christ. His account can be found in each of the four Gospels: Matthew chapter 27, Mark chapter 15 verses 42 to 46, Luke chapter 23, and John chapter 19. When evening had already come, because it was the preparation day, Joseph of Arimathea, a prominent and respected member of the Sanhedrin, Jewish high court, who was himself waiting for the kingdom of God, courageously dared to go in before Pilate and ask for the body of Jesus. Pilate wondered if he was dead by this time, only 6 hours after being crucified, and he summoned the centurion and asked him whether Jesus was already dead. When he learned from the centurion that Jesus was in fact dead, he gave the body to Joseph. Joseph, bearing the name of his hometown, was Arimathea in Judea to distinguish him from others, procured a fine linen cloth for the solemn task of wrapping Jesus' body with care. He descended the cross and tenderly enveloped the lifeless form before placing it in a rock-hewn tomb. A large wheel-shaped stone sealed the entrance, marking the beginning of Jesus' entombment. Though the biblical accounts provide sparse details about Joseph of Arimathea, they offer glimpses into his character and actions. Luke chapter 23, verse 50. Now there was a man named Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man, identifies him as a member of the Jewish council of Sanhedrin, the body responsible for Jesus' crucifixion. Yet, verse 51, he came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and he himself was waiting for the kingdom of God. Uncovers his covert allegiance to Jesus, despite his outward affiliation with the council. Mark chapter 15, verse 43. Joseph of Arimathea, a highly respected member of the Jewish council, came. He was one who lived expectantly, on the lookout for the kingdom of God. Working up his courage, he went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Echoes this sentiment, and as noted in Matthew chapter 27 verse 57, as evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus. Adds another layer to his persona. Though its origins remain obscure, the Bible portrays him as a man of integrity and virtue. Following Jesus' crucifixion, Joseph undertook a daring mission. Approaching the Roman governor Pilate to secure Jesus' body, accompanied by Nicodemus, another figure with a clandestine interest in Jesus, Joseph obtained permission to prepare the body for burial by Jewish custom. They meticulously wrapped the body in linen strips infused with myrrh and aloe. However, time was fleeting as they toiled on the eve of the Sabbath. The prophecy stated, as it is in Isaiah chapter 53, verse 9, "His grave was assigned with the wicked, but he was with a rich man in his death. Because he was with a rich man in his death, because he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth. That he was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth." According to the Gospel of John, Simon Peter entered the tomb after Jesus' resurrection and found strips of linen along with the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still in its place, separate from the linen. Jesus' suffering did not just start at the cross. The events leading up to Jerusalem took place roughly a week before Jesus was crucified. He knew he was headed to the spot where he would die, placing himself on Calvary's altar as a sacrifice for sin. The disciples were nervous, and they had a sense of foreboding in the air. Although Jesus had previously stated that he would die, they were unprepared for this message. They didn't want to hear Jesus talk like that. They had visions of an earthly kingdom. On the road to Jerusalem, we encountered Jesus alone with his thoughts, and the disciples are taken aback. Then, as the crowd grew larger, they became terrified. Jesus needed to say something encouraging amidst a sorrowful prediction, as mentioned in the book of Mark, chapter 10, verses 32 to 34. Now, they were on the road going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus was walking ahead of them. They were perplexed at what Jesus had said, and those who were following were alarmed and afraid. He took the 12 disciples aside and began telling them what was going to happen to him, saying that they were going up to Jerusalem and he would be betrayed and handed over to the Gentiles. And 3 days later, he will rise from the dead. Jesus said he would be betrayed, sentenced, and executed. He had warned them that this would happen. The word that jumps out in that statement is a must. Jesus spoke about the necessity of his cross. Later, he mentioned his death again, but this time he used the term resurrection. Will, as he described what would happen to him. The emphasis was on the cruelty of the crucifixion. When Jesus made these prophecies, he was completely in control. Jesus handled his death in a way that many find incomprehensible. While we understand that death is unavoidable, we have no idea when, where, or how we will die. Jesus was fully aware of his impending death at Calvary. Instead of becoming a victim of circumstance or a martyr for a cause, Jesus was determined, stating that no one would take his life, but he would lay it down for himself. He further clarified, as in Mark chapter 10, verses 33 to 34, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and to the scribes, and they will condemn him to death and deliver him to the Gentiles, and they will mock him and scourge him and spit on him and kill him. And the third day he will rise again. He is authorized and has the power to take it back." He also clearly mentioned that he received the command from his Father. Jesus predicted that he would be betrayed and prayed to the chief priests and scribes, the religious authorities of the day, who would condemn him to death and deliver him to the Gentiles. They would insult, scourge, and spit on Jesus exactly as he predicted. Yet, in the end, Jesus foreshadowed his resurrection. For some reason, this passed right over the disciples' minds. They never seemed to hear that Jesus would rise from the dead. Despite all of this, Jesus rose from the grave 3 days later and is as alive today as he was when he arose from the tomb. Every time Jesus mentioned the cross, another spiritual defect in the disciples' lives was revealed. In Mark chapter 10, verses 35 to 36, then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." He replied, "What do you wish me to do for you?" James and John, the sons of Zebedee, approached Jesus with a bold request, asking for positions of honor in his kingdom. Their ambition was clear: to secure prominent places of authority, one on Jesus' right and the other on his left in his future glory. Yet Jesus saw beyond their ambition. He questioned their readiness for the responsibilities that came with such positions, asking if they were able to drink the cup he drank or be baptized with the baptism he was baptized with. Despite their initial confidence, Jesus foretold that James and John would indeed share in his suffering and mission. The news of this conversation left the other 10 disciples indignant, as they too desired such positions. This incident occurred just a week before Jesus' crucifixion, with his disciples preoccupied with thoughts of power and glory, rather than grasping the imminent sacrifice. As Jesus approached the final days before his crucifixion, his focus was on Jerusalem, where he would willingly identify with humanity and serve others selflessly. Jesus gathered his disciples to impart a crucial lesson on true greatness, highlighting the stark contrast between his ways and the world's expectations. First, Jesus demonstrated his willingness to identify with humanity. Second, he emphasized the importance of serving others rather than seeking personal glory. Third, Jesus clarified his ultimate purpose: to offer his life as a ransom for many, paying the price for their release. The concept of ransom beautifully encapsulates Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, dispelling the misconception that his journey to Calvary was easy. The Gospels recount Jesus' overwhelming sorrow in Gethsemane, where he faced the prospect of excruciating death, humiliation, and insults. The innocence of Jesus, an innocent man dying for others, is vividly portrayed in these accounts. Jesus' prayers in Gethsemane, particularly when he asked that the cup pass over him, revealed his complete surrender to God's will. Before the crucifixion, the metaphorical cup symbolized the bitter suffering he was destined to endure, presenting a deep internal struggle. When Jesus asked his disciples if they could drink the same cup, they confidently replied that they were able. However, Jesus, aware of the depth of suffering, warned them to stay vigilant against temptation, acknowledging the weakness of the flesh. Amid Jesus' internal struggle, he expressed deep grief and sorrow, showcasing his full humanity. His foreknowledge of the impending events did not diminish the emotional and physical toll he experienced. This profound moment in Gethsemane underscores Jesus' humanity and the immense sacrifice he willingly embraced for the redemption of many. Mark chapter 8 verse 31 stated that he began to teach them that the Son of Man must of necessity suffer many things and be rejected as the Messiah by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and must be put to death, and after 3 days rise from death to life. The torment that he was going to go through was not just physical, but also mental and spiritual. Jesus was aware that it was God's plan for him to be crucified, that God wanted him to be pierced for our transgressions and wounded for our healing. Jesus knew that this was the will of God, as stated in Isaiah chapter 53 verses 5 to 7, that he was pierced for human offenses, he was crushed for their wrongdoings. The punishment of their well-being was laid upon him, and by his wounds they are healed. And that although Jesus loves mankind, his humanity dreaded the pain and sorrow he faced, driving him to ask his Father to let the cup pass from me. The phrase, "let this cup pass from me," contains two significant qualifications. To begin, he utters the prayer, "if it is possible," imploring his Father to let him choose an alternative path to redemption for humankind, if one exists. Jesus did not want to die, but he followed the will of God. Hebrews chapter 2 verse 17 tells us that Jesus, in his humanity, shared our experiences to become a compassionate high priest. He fulfilled his mission of seeking and saving the lost, enduring suffering until the end. During his agony in the garden, an angel appeared to strengthen him, signifying heavenly support during difficult times. Jesus' prayer in Gethsemane exemplifies a profound submission to God's will amidst intense emotional turmoil. His prayer was marked by honesty, humility, and emotional depth, contrasting with our often superficial approach to prayer. True prayer demands sincerity and effort, qualities embodied by Jesus in Gethsemane. Luke, a physician, highlights Jesus' sweat resembling blood drops, likely a result of hematidrosis induced by extreme stress. This physical manifestation underscores the intensity of Jesus' anguish and agony. His vulnerability in this moment reveals the depth of his humanity and the severity of his impending sacrifice. Despite pleading for an alternative path, Jesus resolved to follow God's plan, receiving strength from heaven to fulfill his calling. This passage illustrates the profound union between submission to divine will and the divine strength provided in facing the trial of the cross. Jesus' sacrifice on Golgotha, though shrouded in mystery, stands as a beacon of hope and redemption, symbolizing God's profound love for humanity. As we reflect on Jesus' journey from Gethsemane to Golgotha, let us remember the significance of his sacrifice and the assurance of salvation it offers. The journey through Gethsemane offers valuable lessons, reminding us of the importance of spiritual battles, the comfort of divine presence, and the necessity of submission and strength received through prayer. Through Jesus' humanity, humans find reassurance that God understands our struggles and offers strength in times of need. Let's dive into how this lifetime-long stitch in the Holy Shroud has saved billions from confusion. Stay tuned. The shocking discovery about the Shroud's stitching pattern. The distinctive stitching pattern discovered on the reverse side of the Shroud stitching pattern presents a compelling avenue for enhancing our comprehension of its origin and historical trajectory. This unique feature not only showcases the craftsmanship employed during its creation, but also offers a potential geographical and cultural fingerprint. By subjecting the stitching to meticulous analysis, experts can glean insights into the historical context, contributing significantly to the ongoing discourse surrounding the Shroud's authenticity. In the realm of textile craftsmanship, the stitching pattern emerges as a critical facet for discerning the origin of ancient artifacts. This stitching, like a distinct signature, carries the imprint of historical practices, enabling experts to draw parallels with known traditions and methods prevalent during the period associated with the Shroud. The stitching pattern becomes a veritable time capsule, offering a glimpse into the textile artistry of the era in question. The intricacies of the stitches, the choice of materials, and the overall composition can be scrutinized against the backdrop of historical textile practices. This analysis may reveal regional variations or cultural idiosyncrasies that align with specific locales or traditions. Consequently, the stitching pattern acts as a pivotal clue guiding researchers in their quest to unlock the mysteries of the Shroud's origin. Beyond its role as a cultural signifier, the stitching pattern assumes even greater significance when considered in the context of the Shroud's historical journey. This artifact, purported to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, has a documented history dating back to the 14th century, when it was publicly exhibited in a church in north-central France. However, the discovery of the unique stitching pattern on the back of the Shroud introduces a new layer of complexity to its narrative. There was a pivotal moment in the Shroud's historical revelation that occurred in 2002 during conservation efforts in Italy. The removal of a 16th-century backing cloth exposed a stitching pattern on the back of the Shroud that bore a resemblance to a stitch known from another historical site, the Masada Fortress in Israel. This archaeological connection linking the Shroud to Masada adds layers of authenticity to its story, aligning it with a historical timeline that coincides with the life of Jesus. The implications of this stitching pattern for the Shroud's journey become more pronounced when considering the socio-political context of Masada. The fortress was a witness to the Jewish revolt, providing a historical backdrop that aligns with the crucifixion of Jesus. The stitching pattern serves as a roadmap for tracing the shroud's trajectory through time. By meticulously examining repairs, alterations, and the overall condition of the stitching, researchers can piece together a chronicle of the shroud's custodianship. This forensic analysis becomes instrumental in authenticating its historical journey and validating claims about its purported origin. The stitching's role in corroborating or challenging assertions about the shroud's authenticity cannot be overstated. When aligned with known textile practices of the time, the stitching becomes a corroborative piece of evidence, reinforcing the claim that the shroud could indeed date back to the era of Jesus' crucifixion. Any anomalies in the stitching would necessitate a reassessment of its historical proof, prompting a more nuanced and non-critical evaluation of its authenticity. In essence, the stitching pattern on the back of the Shroud of Turin transcends the realm of mere speculation. It stands as a tangible and distinctive feature that beckons researchers to delve deeper into the intricacies of ancient textile craftsmanship. The stitching's potential to reveal the cultural and geographical roots of the shroud, coupled with its role in tracing the artifact's historical journey, positions it as an anchor in the ongoing quest to unravel the mysteries surrounding this enigmatic relic. Modern scientific analyses, including carbon dating and forensic examination, play a pivotal role in shaping our perception of the authenticity and significance of the Shroud of Turin. These rigorous investigative techniques provide invaluable insights into the origin, composition, and historical context of the artifact, offering both corroborative evidence and avenues for critical inquiry. By subjecting the shroud to comprehensive scientific scrutiny, researchers endeavor to unravel its mysteries while navigating the intricate intersection of faith, history, and empirical inquiry. Carbon dating stands as one of the most widely recognized scientific methods employed in the study of the shroud. By analyzing the ratio of carbon isotopes present, researchers can estimate the age of the artifact with a high degree of precision. In the case of the shroud, carbon dating conducted in 1988 yielded a range of dates spanning from 1260 to 1390 AD. This led some to conclude that the artifact originated during the medieval period rather than the time of Jesus. This finding has therefore sparked controversy within both scientific and religious communities. Have you ever doubted the reality of the Shroud of Turin? Are you intrigued by the facts embedded in this video? I would like to know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting videos.